ICE, Minneapolis, and Renee Nicole Good. It's a little unfortunate that I took a look at Dark Matter's video that came after this one in particular, quote unquote, at war with ourselves, where he specifically talks about the actions of ICE within Minneapolis and, well, the killing of Renee Nicole Good, the tragic killing of Renee Nicole Good. And yes, of course, a preamble. We've looked at Dark Matter's videos before. We're familiar, yada, yada, yada. Moving on. The thing with that video is, like, because the point that Dark Matter was saying in the follow-up video, I forget the name of the video. I'm really bad with fucking names. You know how I am. I forget names all the time. What Dark Matter was pointing out is that we are currently living in a particular historical moment of rank authoritarian and fascism, and a lot of that is those seeds have been sown by various right-wing political pundits, as well as Donald Trump himself. We can also talk about the prominence that Gamergate and also Steve Bannon played in order to be able to create the current conditions that we find ourselves under, right? And that I pretty much 100% agree with, right? A lot of the exact same analogies can be made and have been made, and I think are accurate to make about what is happening within the United States of America and also Weimar Germany. I think we can all, broadly speaking, agree to that. Is it proceeding the exact same way? No, not really. Because I don't think something like that can come, well, basically be put in place under a Donald Trump presidency, mostly because I think he's too lazy, because it would be a lot of work and bureaucratic, like, bullshit in order to sort of put a sort of, like, Fourth Reich, I suppose, into place, because of several factors. The people that are currently put in places of power in the Trump administration are purely in it for themselves. They care more about, like, their podcasts and grifting and also gaining a bunch of wealth for themselves. I guess, like, grifting pretty much, like, falls into that category. There's a bunch of wannabe influencers. They're basically podcasters, wannabe influencers, yada, yada, yada. They want to get a cushy job on some boardroom position after all this is over. Blah, 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 right? Typical fucking grifting stuff that sort of, like, encapsulates not only the Republican Party, but Congress in general, the whole entire, like, U.S. political system. With Trump, also just, like, logistically speaking, the reason why the Nazis successful in implementing a Third Reich is they had a lot of things that were going for them. Courts were partial to them. The economic collapse that made it such that the arguments that they were putting forward, lies of course, were palatable to the lumpen proletariat, who made up most of their most of the fucking constituency of the NSDAP. That and also the Strauss-rights that they fucking duped, seemingly, but whatever. As well as the dire straits of the, well, the, not like the dire straits, but, like, I guess, like, the dire straits of the German economic and political system that have allowed someone like him in order to be able to show up, and even the socially speaking as well. Hitler had a bunch of stuff going for him. He was a World War I war hero, and was always like an aimless drifter, basically, but became very, very anti-Semitic because of time that he spent homeless in, well, Vienna in Austria, which was, well, run by a very, very anti-Semitic neighbor. But I digress. Yeah, currently that's not really the same sort of conditions happening right now within the Trump administration, but they're trying. They're trying their best. Like, because so far, who made the economy worse? Oh, it's Trump. The courts are not on the side of Trump. The military is certainly not on the side of Trump. And all of these, like, conditions necessary for something like that to take over are not really put in place. But they're still going to try anyways, right? They're certainly helping to further deteriorate the institutions of the United States of America and essentially make it such that something like a rising fascistic leader may be able to take the reins of power and take America down the sort of path of totalitarianism, right? Because I don't think Trump is going to be the main guy to do it, because I don't think he really is interested in that whatsoever. I think he just wants to make a bunch of money for himself because he's at his heart a scam artist who just likes to put on a show. But I digress. Going on a little bit of a ramble here. Dark matter on what happened in Minneapolis and ICE. Because he did say that it was going to happen again, and it happened again. Thank you, YouTube.
I was just staying in Minneapolis recently. You know how sometimes you don't see what's going on in the present, but after the fact, when you look back and remember, you realize what was actually going on? That epiphany recently happened to me with this militaristic ICE operation in Minnesota. As many of you know, I had to leave my YouTube channel for a couple months when I needed to do some traveling across the country to help some family. And because I have some friends and family spread out around the country, I made a few stops and visited them along the way. And one of the places I went to was Minneapolis, where I have a lot of family. And we stayed in the city for quite a while. And during that time, I went all over the city. It was absolutely lovely there. The people were all very friendly and welcoming. It was clean and safe. Just a really nice, really well-run place. I was impressed with it. I felt a lot safer there than I do in Florida. I carry a gun in Florida. Even though I don't...
Oh, you live in Florida. I'm sorry that you live in Florida. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you live in Florida. I mean, listen, whatever reason you fucking live in Florida, you live in Florida. Personally, my opinion, I would never want to live in fucking Florida. It's I hate humidity. I hate that so much. The hurricanes, the ineffective fucking governance, the fact that it's probably like impossible to find home insurance. So good luck buying a house in there. I don't know. Like the only economic prospects that I think really exist for Florida is like, I don't know, either being an OnlyFans pimp or an OnlyFans whore. So it's just like, oh god, I would not want to touch Florida with a 10-foot pole. I'm gonna be honest.
Technically need a license to carry a gun in Florida. I got one anyway because I believe you should prove yourself.
Well, you don't need a license to carry a gun. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's Florida, guys.
To be competent and responsible, and I am. But my license is not in Minnesota. You need to have a Minnesota permit to carry a gun there. So I did not carry my gun in Minnesota, and that felt fine. It felt good. It would not have felt fine in Florida. I sort of feel naked without it in Florida, but it felt fine in Minnesota. And as it turns out, that's not just my feelings.
Is Florida an open carry state? I'm not 100%. I don't remember 100% for certain because, like, I already know way too much stuff than I probably should know, to be honest. I think Florida is an open carry state. No, don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% certain for sure, but yeah, like I'm operating off of the assumption that is that is probably the case.
In Florida, you are 13.5% more likely to be the victim of a violent crime than in Minnesota.
Of course. You can kind of
see why when it comes to the difference of the general temperament of those places. So around that time, I gasped and literally laughed out loud, hysterically, like a madman, when I read a statement by Trump made on his Truth Social account, which said, quote, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone.
So yeah, this is the exact same, like, schizophrenic nonsense that was essentially used to justify the quote-unquote eating the dogs and cats lie that was spread by a Nazi, I'm going to say, within Springfield, Ohio. It's just a lie. It's just a thing that's not fucking happening. It was spread by one fucking dude who said that at a city council meeting within Springfield, Ohio. But the vice president decided to run with that, give it over to the president, and he also repeated that on the fucking debate stage with Kamala Harris. Great. Very, very cool. Yeah, totally. The hundreds of thousands of refugees in Somalia, I don't think their population even eclipses 100,000. There's thousands of them. Hundreds of thousands? Bit of a stretch. Maybe they're over 100,000. I don't 100% remember myself. Could do a quick fucking Google. Why don't we do that real quick? Just quickly, based off the AI overview, ranges from about 80 to over 100,000. So not exactly hundreds of thousands of people like the president is claiming. So obviously it's a lie, but whatever. And he is just going to basically blame this only on Tim Walz because the right wing was ginning up some like idiotic fucking culture war talking point on Tim Walz, and there was this whole like idiotic maelstrom. I don't remember exactly what was happening 100% at that case when he said this, but he's like ginning up this like whole idiotic culture war over Somalis in Minnesota. For what reason exactly? Oh, because he's just racist against fucking Ilhan Omar, who is a refugee and a, well, black Somali woman. That's the reason why.
Arsler, governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both.
Again, the investigation into fraud in Minnesota was being carried out by the DOJ that started under Joe Biden and was still being carried out under Trump, which may have been not as efficiently done because of the fact that Trump was diverting a bunch of people away, agents, shall we say, of those departments away to do immigration enforcement. Yeah, if anything, the fraud might have been potentially getting worse because of you, Trump.
That lie struck me very differently than his many other lies I've heard him tell, because his other lies were debunked through actual research. But this lie involved my direct physical experience and what I knew to be true without the need to do any research. Now, I always knew Trump was a liar, but to say such an easily verifiable falsehood kind of baffled me. If you think about it, though, he's not trying to win over the people of Minnesota who know he's lying. He's trying to influence people outside of Minnesota who believe what he says without question.
This is
because
true.
Trump leads the way, I saw various posts on social media about how Minnesota has fallen to foreign invaders and how Minneapolis has been burned to the ground. And it's sort of surreal to be standing in a nice, clean, friendly, and safe city.
Yeah, like I said before, there's a whole culture war specifically around Tim Walz because, honestly, I'll be honest, Tim Walz didn't really do all that well in that debate against J.D. Vance. They should not have been cordial with one another. You should just be calling J.D. Vance various slurs and just making fun of him, I'll be honest. I'm being a little ironic when I say the slurs bit, okay? Don't actually do that. It's not going to play well. Because Tim Walz was effectively neutered by the DNC to not just look at his opponent and just be like, you're weird, man. You're just a weirdo. And I'm just going to keep calling you weird over and over and over again, and that the president that you serve is also weird, and that your party that you have is weird. And that would have been rhetorically really effective in that debate. Just be like, what you believe in is weird. You're weird. You're just a weirdo. Why are you so weird? And guess what? He would have won the debate just like that with that rhetorical tactic. And instead, what did we get? Just nonsense. Like, treating, like, J.D. Vance like he's an honest fucking actor, when we all know J.D. Vance is not. And so in the minds of these conservatives, they thought of Tim Walz as, like, this petulant, weak, very, very fucking effeminate man, when that's just not really the case.
While reading about how it's burned to the ground and overrun with foreign invaders like it's a scene out of Mad Max. And it's true that back in 2020, someone used an AK-47 to fire a bunch of rounds at a police station in Minneapolis just before it was set on fire. Never mind that the guy who was convicted of that shooting was a right-wing agitator named Ivan Hunter who drove up there from Texas. And people see the pictures of a burning building from 12 different angles, so they say that this and this and this has burned to the ground. About half of it.
Yeah, this is, again, the byproduct of also the George Floyd protests that happened within, because that's, guess where it started? Started in Minneapolis, right? And then every fucking right-wing pundit and grifter and even Fox News themselves were all making the claims that Minneapolis is being burnt to the ground, or Portland was being burnt to the ground by Antifa fucking agitators, when in reality, the vast majority, I think it was like 94% of the protests that happened with George Floyd, because of the George Floyd murder, were peaceful, right? The only instances of riots that happened were, like, the big ones were in Minneapolis as a direct reaction of a Derek Chauvin just murdering George Floyd. So it makes sense that there was going to be a rather immediate reaction as a byproduct of that in particular. But generally speaking, like, in terms of whenever riots were started, during the George Floyd protests, guess who mostly did them and tried to agitate to start to sort of spurn the people on to get into a riot to do more enforcement and crackdowns upon the protesters? It's mostly done by the police who were trying to fucking agitate, who disguise themselves as protesters, and other right-wing fucking agitators. Because that's what they do all the time, because all these people are racist and think that, oh yeah, I mean, like, we should treat, black people, quote unquote, as lessers, because that's how right-wingers just inherently fucking think. They think that. They all fucking think that. So, of course they're gonna fucking do shit like that. They're gonna try to agitate for people who are broadly, anti-racist and didn't think what happened with George Floyd was really justifiable whatsoever. Like, duh, because these people are just demons.
The people charged with felonies for the crimes they committed in Minneapolis during the 2020 riots weren't from Minneapolis. And wouldn't you know it,
Sure.
The agitators are at it again.
One of the most suspicious things that happened yesterday in Minnesota, in my opinion, is this guy. The guy who burned the American flag in front of everyone. Now, after he did this, he immediately left like it was...
By the way, Jake Lang is also been catfished, messaging who he thought was a 15-year-old, trying to become 16, trying to meet up with her in order to probably have sex with her, one would assume. And is also a pardoned J6er. By the way, with most of these guys, they're all pardoned J6ers.
It's nobody's business. Now, why would someone burn up a flag, rile them up, make them protest, and just sneak away? A girl followed him, recorded him, asked him a bunch of questions, and just check this out.
You wouldn't have ran off. That's weird. Because we need people to see that that's happening. Well, why would you run off? Why would you run off? That's weird, to burn a flag and run off. That doesn't make sense. That's not a protest.
Why are you not back there at the protest? We got everybody riled up. You came here to do what? To Boogaloo Boy? An accelerationist? What are you doing here?
Usually these people are proud to protest and tell them where they're from.
Are you here?
This is true. Jake Lang is an agitator, right? Because he doesn't like left-wing or even basic liberal sort of ideological stuff because he's a Nazi. Yeah, he's a fucking Nazi. That's why he did the agitation specifically there. He wanted to spur a reaction to get the police to crack down on the fucking protesters because he doesn't believe in the tenets of fucking protest. He doesn't believe in the tenets of free speech. He doesn't even believe in civil society.
Yeah, we know. We remember George Floyd, so we know you guys are around.
Hey, fuck your flag burning, dude. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know where the fuck he is. He doesn't even know where his fucking car is. What?
Why you hiding your face, huh? Why you got your glasses on? You think you're some covert fucking like ninja or something, bro? Cosplaying?
This guy is a disgraced traitor J6er who went to prison for attacking police with a baseball bat, and Trump pardoned him. And he recently drove up to Minneapolis.
Oh, thanks. Oh. Listen, if there's anyone that I didn't pre-watch this video, okay? I didn't pre-watch this, but I knew this was probably going to be brought up, okay? Listen. We're one on this one, Dark Matter, okay? We're one.
Minneapolis to start trouble, but he got his ass kicked and chased off. Now they're claiming that Minneapolis is destroyed again. But most of the people who believe that rhetoric and who believe Trump will never set foot in Minneapolis. And Trump is okay with a certain number of people knowing he's lying, especially if they're just liberals and leftists. And as long as enough other people believe that he's telling the truth, and they do. The federal government sent a large force of ICE agents into Minnesota, so much so that it looks like a literal military occupation. In fact, it even had a name of a military campaign called Operation Metro Surge. Like earlier,
Very
we did a
soy.
campaign against Chicago called Operation Midway Blitz.
Very
military
soy.
campaigns against American cities. And that's when the blatant lie of Trump's statement clicked.
Well, the thing is, and there's a reason why he's doing this, right? It's practice. The Trump administration has made it rather clear themselves that potentially, and everyone needs to be wary of this, depending on the outcomes of the midterms, there may be attempts at occupation of Democrat-run cities, people that they fundamentally don't agree with, who may push back against a lot of the authoritarian, bullshit that the administration is generally speaking pushing for. Because in reality, what the Republicans want, what these conservatives want, is they want the authoritarianism. They want a dictator to be put into power. That is what they fundamentally believe in. They are inherently submissive to, those that they see as above them within the fucking hierarchy. And as a byproduct, as a result of that, they are totally okay with military occupations being done in Democrat-run cities because they're all a bunch of icky, stinky fucking Democrats, even though they've never really interacted with any of these people. They hardly leave their houses, let's be honest here. And as a byproduct, as a result of that, they are inherently okay with a lot of the, unconstitutional actions, because also these people are in a cult, but whatever, that's besides the point. What these people are ultimately okay with is the dictatorship being put in and going after those they perceive to be their, main political opponents, and that is like the nebulous idea of the left.
And then I understood his motive. It was preparation rhetoric. It was mental lubrication. It's just a bullshit preemptive justification so that when...
I swear I didn't pre-watch this, guys, okay? I swear.
He sends in the troops into a perfectly peaceful and lovely American city like Minneapolis, half the country...
Quick reminder, he's also done a raid on Fulton County for 2020 ballots. He's making it very, very clear. He wants to use ICE as his own personal private army to go around polling places to make sure that you vote for Republicans, which is, so blatantly fucking ridiculous and unconstitutional that I don't think it really bears really mentioning the reasons for as to why that's the case.
Is already primed to think it's a fallen wasteland desperately in need of saving, and that's why they're not nearly as concerned as they should be about a militarized federal force inserting itself into a peaceful American city. They think that ICE are just these innocent, honorable agents bravely delving into a lawless and broken hellhole to straighten it out and liberate its oppressed American citizens by finally enforcing the laws that Minnesota's
Yeah, he wanted to pull a gun and start shooting someone. I mean, these guys, by the way, are mostly like 3%ers, Proud Boys, all these like Patriot Front, all these like militia right-wing weirdos have all essentially been pressed into working for ICE.
Politicians refuse to enforce. That's what they believe. So when they see videos of ICE agents brutalizing people, they cheer it on.
And it's disgusting what we have seen from the left, and I think that it just shows you where the
Hi,
modern
Caroline,
stands
love
today
it.
in protecting illegal alien pedophiles and rapists and murderers over law-abiding American citizens and our brave men and women.
I have bad news. Yeah, also, like, release the fucking Epstein file. Oh, this was, by the way, right around the beginning of the release of the Epstein files back in fucking January. Jesus Christ. But yeah, this was right around the beginning of the release of the Epstein files, and the first documents they put out, because they didn't think they would actually have to follow through with that, were just completely fucking redacted. Not in line at all with the Epstein files. Yeah, like, or the Epstein Transparency Act, rather. Yeah. I mean, if these motherfuckers can always just blame the left, they will. They don't believe in anything. They're all charlatans. They're all grifters, and they'll just say like a bunch of random fucking bullshit. Like, they're so fucking, it's so fucking ridiculous, man.
Those are law enforcement officers being physically attacked. By this standard, would any of those officers be justified in shooting and killing the people causing them physical harm?
Every single situation is going to rely on the situation those officers are on. But they know that when people are putting hands on them, when they are using weapons against them, when they're physically harming them, that they have the authority to arrest those individuals.
The President pardoned every single one of those people.
Lies, by the way, so whatever.
President Trump pardoned every single one of those
And every
people.
single one of these investigations comes in the full context of the situation on the ground. And that's one thing that President Trump has been so focused on, is making sure that when we're out there, we don't pick and choose which situations are in which laws are enforced and which ones aren't. Every single one of them is being enforced under the Trump administration. And the clarity of the law stands. And if people don't like it, these members of Congress and elected officials should go change the law and make sure they have that debate and policy.
I just showed you video of people attacking law enforcement officers. Undisputed proof, undisputed evidence. And I just said President Trump pardoned all of them. And you said that President Trump is enforcing all the laws equally. It's just not true. There's a different standard for law enforcement officials being attacked. If they're being
So, by the way, this is the problem that I have with American media, broadly speaking, because they have to make sure that they still have access to these people. They're not just going to say, like, you're a fucking stupid bitch. You're just lying. You're a liar. Go fuck yourself. Because, guess what? They themselves are incredibly afraid and will constantly sane-wash the actions of the administration, which I think is blatantly fucking collaborationist with the administration. And that's the main problem that I have with a lot of American commodified media, generally speaking, because they know they have to maintain access in order to make sure they get the ratings and the views so they can make a bunch of fucking goddamn money. Which is why I really do believe that in terms of, like, wealth accumulation and capitalism, it is wholeheartedly incongruent with being able to build a successful democratic fucking country. Because if the media is not allowed to do its actual job of criticizing those that are in power and informing people, because this is how it's supposed to work, how to, well, not how to think, but like informing the people to be able to come up with their own opinions on a particular situation, it makes it such that democracy is not fucking possible anymore. It's essentially been subverted. All because they have to appeal to these conservative dipshits because they have to make a bunch of fucking goddamn money.
being attacked by Trump supporters. We just saw that.
This individual and these instances and these investigations all have to be taken and done correctly in context of every situation that is happening on the ground. So what we are doing today as the Department of Homeland Security is out there with our law enforcement officers, making sure that we're targeting the worst.
It's obviously
and
all
we're talking
lies,
factually about
but
each
whatever.
situation and making sure that we're bringing those perpetuators of violence back to justice.
All right, they're not ready for Procon players. You got your super soakers? You got your fucking baloney? Where are we going? We want us over here? Oh, we got the power march. What are we doing here?
Well, and he got... Yeah, that's Robbie Roadsteamer, who's constantly been going around all over the place in the country, just like making fun of ICE. Wherever there's an ICE deployment, Robbie will show up. And guess what? Oh, he got arrested for it. Which is, again, violation of the First Amendment.
That we're targeting the worst of the worst, and that we're talking factually about each situation, making sure that we're bringing those perpetuators of violence back to justice.
That every person that's in this country illegally has an opportunity to voluntarily go home and come back the right way.
Well, you know, as we all know, she has been fired at this point, so yeah. Not that much is really going to change with DHS or ICE. It is a fundamentally rotten institution.
Anyways,
3 United States Marines. He has been living here peacefully, doing his job for 30 years. You have discretion. You are choosing not to use it. Madam Secretary, you promised America that you would go after the worst of the worst. But these people are not the worst of the worst. A Purple Heart recipient, a military spouse, the father of 3 Marines. And it's not just veterans and military families. You are locking up and deporting children with cancer, mothers with babies in the NICU, United States citizens. There are many problems with your leadership, but the biggest problem is this. You don't seem to know how to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. Go after the bad guys. Go after the terrorists. Do not go after veterans, Marines, children,
Gentleman's time
United States
expired.
citizens. I yield back.
Here's the thing. We took a look at exactly MAGA Magaziners, I think is his name's testimony here, and questioning of Chris, you know. Here's the thing. They don't care. They just don't care. That's the problem. Which is why you can't treat any of these people as honest detractors. They just do not give a shit. The point is the cruelty. The point is the abhorrence, inherently speaking. When I say that Republicans are fucking demons, and ICE are a bunch of demons, I fucking mean it.
They think it's justified by default, no evidence necessary, guilty until proven innocent, because they live in an alternate reality where roving bands of foreign marauders are terrorizing Americans. But the people of Minneapolis aren't treating the ICE agents as liberators. The people who are actually there, living the reality that you only watch on videos, are not cheering it on.
Yo, Comrade Will Stansel, dude. Comrade Will Stansel, dude. The strongest anti-ICE soldier.
Officers with long guns moving in, busting through the door before entering the South Minneapolis apartment building. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Office say they were executing multiple search warrants for
direct violation of the Fourth Amendment, by the way. Yeah, because the basis of the quote-unquote search warrants that they have is some shit called an administrative warrant. Doesn't exist. Just doesn't exist. It's not a thing. But the vice president claimed it was a thing, so therefore it's now a thing. Because we don't live in reality anymore. And haven't lived in reality since like 2016. It's been a very, very long time.
For a firearm stolen from a federal vehicle Wednesday night. Another angle shows officers inside searching this unit before taking the camera down. Outside, towards the back of the building, a young woman in handcuffs being walked out.
She said she was just scared to death about. She felt scared. I'm sure they could tell.
And this is what's left behind: an apartment flipped upside down.
I don't even know where to start. It's like I just want to cry.
Search warrant documents left behind show the intended target was apartment 2926.
It won't even close.
Elisa Porter says that's the unit above her, and the tenant moved out 2 months ago.
I just know he was my neighbor. That's it. That's all I know.
Mail for Porter lists her address at 2928.
But this is not even the place you're supposed to be at looking for anything.
She says police had no right to target her place, leaving her confused, outraged, and without answers.
All my clothes thrown over there in the corner. They pulled it. I mean, they just took everything just apart. I don't even know.
She should sue, by the way, because what they did is just blatantly fucking illegal. Unfortunately, I'm not going to say unfortunately. Of course, ICE agents are barely fucking literate. Or agents, are barely literate. And they weren't even able to pass the very, very low standards of testing when they were able to, I guess, get their fucking uniform and badges and start doing fucking immigration enforcement. Like, these people are barely trained. They are, as Dark Matter himself said, and as I have myself have also said, they're just a bunch of roving bands of marauders.
Reminder of your rights if ICE does come to your door. According to the city, ICE needs a judge-signed warrant with your name and address to come inside. Also, you can ask the agent to show you the warrant.
Local news has to broadcast what your constitutional rights are now. Yep, I mean, this is what they've always should have done, but whatever.
And if there is not a valid warrant, you have the right to keep your door closed. We have more on this and the differences between a judicial
Fourth Amendment.
and a warrant on our website at fox9.com.
Fourth Amendment.
The only people cheering are the people who don't actually live there. The people who live there are resisting them because the people of Minneapolis weren't actually being terrorized by roving bands of marauders until ICE showed up. Now it's not so peaceful anymore. What changed? Well, not the people of Minneapolis. They didn't change. Other people came to their city and took it over. That's what changed. A real foreign invasion of sorts to stop a fake one. There are around 100,000.
Because, by the way, the claim that the president is working off of, based off of a dumbass fucking video by Nick Shirley. I'm not sure if Dark Matter is going to bring up Nick Shirley specifically, because that's the reason why ICE is even within Minneapolis, because of a schizophrenic fucking video released by Nick Shirley, that troglodyte, that barely functioning brick for brains of a human, decided to come in, film a video, talk about where is the fraud, where are the kids in Minneapolis and the daycares, there's a bunch of fraud going on here. Presented no evidence of fraud, no indication or mention of the fact that there is currently a DOJ investigation happening into the cases of fraud in Minneapolis state with daycare specifically, which is happening, not to mention also all the PPP fraud stuff that also happened within Minneapolis, which has been resolved and taken care of with all the perpetrators. I think it's like 95% of them were Somali, have been either convicted or have gotten their fucking sentencing, or are waiting their sentencing. They have all been deemed as completely and utterly fucking guilty. And no mention from Nick Shirley or any of these people about any of the fucking current investigations going on in the area, because they don't care. The point was the terrorizing. The point was the military fucking occupation. And the whole idea that illegal migrants from 2020, because this is the fucking argument these people are basing it off of, are casting illegal fucking ballots in elections when 2020 was widely regarded as the safest election in U.S. history, or one of the safest elections in U.S. fucking history, is nonsense. It's just coping and fucking seething from these complete, utter fucking goddamn freaks.
Illegal immigrants in the state of Minnesota. That's about 1.6 of Minnesota's entire population. Sounds like a lot of illegal immigrants, right? That must be why they need to send in a huge militaristic federal force to get them out. But in Florida, there are about 1.2 million illegal immigrants, which is 5.2% of Florida's entire population, 12 times more illegal immigrants than in Minnesota. Why aren't they sending in these federal armies to take over Florida's cities? Weird, right? Texas has about 1.8 million illegal immigrants, 18 times more than Minnesota. Illegal immigrants are 5.8% of Texas's population, yet no federal army seizes control of a Texas city. In fact, 4.1% of the whole population of the United States is composed of illegal immigrants, yet in Minnesota, it's only 1.6% of their population. In other words, Minnesota is one of the worst places to send ICE, while Florida and Texas would be much better places to send them if you actually cared about illegal immigration. But it's not really about illegal immigration. It's the precursor to a quasi-civil war of sorts, where blue states are treated very differently than red states, even when the red states are far more guilty of the same crimes. Using something that's fake to justify,
like 1,000 fucking goddamn %, right? It's all an attempt to manufacture consent, and this is the exact same thing that they tried to do in LA and failed miserably in. They tried to do this also in New York, failed fucking miserably. They tried to do this in Charlotte. They tried to do this in where else did they try to do this? They tried to do this in New Orleans. They've tried to do this across every fucking blue city. Chicago as well. I almost forgot about Chicago. They're trying to do this in Chicago. They're trying to do this in every fucking blue city across the fucking goddamn United States of America. Why exactly? Because he wants to do the fucking military dictatorship. That's what Trump really wants in reality. He wants to take over all of these blue cities. For what purpose exactly? Because he just wants to stay in power, because he's still mad about the fact that he lost in fucking 2020. It is that ridiculous and petulant. It really, really is.
A very real response has always been Trump's methodology. The airstrikes against boats in the Caribbean was a fake campaign against drugs as a pretext to invade Venezuela for the real reason of oil control. The fake accusation against the chairman of the Fed was a pretext to indict him later for the real reason of dropping interest rates. The fake concern over China and Russia invading Greenland, which they would never do, is a pretext to seize Greenland's rare earth metals and jeopardize our relationship with NATO to the benefit of Russia. When Trump says fake news, it's the ultimate projection and is yet another pretext to disregard the valid questions and criticisms journalists and reporters have against him. Lying about roving bands of Somali gangs terrorizing the people of Minnesota was a pretext to send in militarized federal law enforcement, which then causes unrest, which then becomes the pretext for the Insurrection Act, which Trump just now threatened to invoke, which would allow him to send in the actual military, which overrides the standard restrictions against military use against American citizens, thereby allowing the military to both search and arrest Americans. A country turned against itself. Why does the country only turn against itself like this whenever Trump is in office? Weird, right?
Because he's a fascist. Right? He's a fascist. That's why. He wants to have a fascist dictatorship under himself. Right? Let's be honest here. Like, no disagreement here. Like, what else am I supposed to say here? The thing is that I will have some like slight disagreements here with dark matter. A lot of the media is complicit with the actions of Trump. 1,000%. All the constant sane washing that they do over and over and over again of an administration which is just broadly speaking run by a bunch of fucking criminals. Just a bunch of fucking goddamn criminals. It should really go without saying that the fact that the media itself is not doing its responsibility of constantly just shitting on this administration and trying to come up with some form of fucking reasoning to try to either like justify the position, when in private they all say like everything that's happening is fucking insane, what the fuck is going on, and not saying any of this on air means that they are overall fucking complicit in it as well. Because again, there's money that needs to be made. That's why I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Capital is not incongruent, or not incongruent, is incongruence rather with democracy. They are opposition forces. They cannot live with one another. Period. End of story. That's the fucking main issue here, right? A lot of the actions that are going on, which is obviously nonsensical from the president, and it's mostly because of like people being in his ear, because we all know his brain is completely cooked. Like there's nothing really going on up there. It's people are just telling him, like going into his ears, like Stephen Miller. We all know he was actually the fucking shadow president, or like Marco Rubio, who told him to do this stuff in Venezuela, or like JD Vance are also like telling him things, and whatever like Groyper weirdos are telling him to like do things. And he just follows through with it because he's just like being told like the correct words in his like melting fucking lizard brain where he's just like, oh yeah, this sounds like a good thing to do because my people are telling me it's a good thing to do, so I'm just gonna fucking do it because it's a good thing, yeah. And people are saying that that I'm popular. Like, he unironically has cited polling saying that he thinks he's like above water and that he's actually very, very popular and that gas prices are down. He doesn't live in reality. He lives in an alternate sort of mess because, broadly speaking, if his sycophants that are around him actually tell him the truth, he's gonna fucking throw a hissy fit like a petulant little fucking child, despite the fact that, you know, everyone, broadly speaking, has already acknowledged the reality that's around them, but the president's just not going to fucking listen to it because, again, he's a child whose brain is barely fucking functioning. Like, that's the fucking problem here. It's ridiculous, it's insane, but this is the current environment that we find ourselves under.
His supporters live in a fake reality, so when they see things that should greatly concern them, they instead cheer it on. And it's not just fakeness, it's also blatant hypocrisy. See, whenever MAGA loses, they take steps to save face, to mitigate embarrassment, because of their relationship to embarrassment and how they try to inflict it upon others. So then it also becomes what they fear the most, their own weapon. So when Trump lost the election that they for so long gloated that they were going to win, it became such an embarrassment that they cried that it was stolen. And that gave rise to Schrodinger's Fed. You see, when the January 6th storming of the Capitol happened, the failed result was also so embarrassing and shameful that they needed to save face once again. So those rioters and traitors were accused of being secret federal agents, you see, who incited a riot on purpose because the government...
Yeah, they do that shit all the fucking time, constantly. Like, if something optically speaking looks terrible for the right, they'll just be like, nah, glowy, Fed, glowy, they're a glowy, can't fucking trust them. They do this all the fucking goddamn time. It's just like... Because everything that these motherfuckers do and that everything that they fucking believe in is a complete, utter fucking embarrassment. So they have to try to save face and be like, nah, the guy who did that fucking glowy federal agent, can't fucking trust or believe anything that comes out of the mouth of that guy because, again, he's a fucking loser. I personally would never do anything like that, even though they believe in, well, everything that those guys believe in this, like, hypothetical scenario that I'm saying here. Believe in the exact same stuff. And they all said, like, yeah, what's going on with January 6th was actually based, and then they delete all of that as soon as it comes out as being really soy and fucking cringe. Like, because right now, right, like, this is about a month and a half after all of this has been recorded by Dark Matter, you have Nick Fuentes, unironically, just losing his mind against fucking super chatters and saying that he's a fucking liberal. Because what these people wanted is just aesthetic of fascism. They wanted the aesthetic of the Nazis. They thought the Nazis looked cool, they liked the aesthetic, but now that it's actually happening, because it's always been a disorganized mess, even under them specifically, but now that it's currently happening, it looks soy, it's fucking cringe, because it is fucking soy and cringe, because guess what? Fascism has always been incredibly fucking soy and cringe, but these fucking dumbasses don't understand that, because they are a bunch of fucking idiots who only look at, like, Sonenrad edits on fucking TikTok. That's the main issue. And is there going to be any, like, recognition or reflection from these people? No.
Is inherently corrupt and not to be trusted. But now that federal agents are storming blue cities, they're suddenly totally trustworthy and honorable heroes who are inciting nothing at all. Because they're the good guys who can do no wrong, perfectly innocent, and fighting against the forces of evil. Schrodinger's Fed. What's funny and sad is that some of those ICE agents were the same ones who did storm the Capitol, because that's how low their standards are now. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They weren't the feds before, but they are now. It's also Schrodinger's protester.
I also said this.
A federal officer as a leftist, then you will face the full extent of the law, as the Department of Homeland Security announces here. But if you violently assaulted federal officers for Trump on January 6th, then you received a full pardon, and you were released. And some of those who were released went on to commit murder and child molestation, while others became federal agents.
I've also said all this stuff before. Yeah, like... Whoa, we're all surprised the obvious fucking fascists who were incited to riot by the proto-fascist president all ended up being fucking molesters and did violent acts after getting fucking pardoned, and that these guys should have just stayed and rotted away in jail the whole time. No, what a fucking shock, dude. Oh, I'm so shocked. Again, listen, laws, they don't care about this. The Republican Party, all the times they say that they're the party of law and order, bull fucking shit. They believe in nothing.
Selves. The message is loud and clear. Laws for thee, not for me. The protesters now aren't people who traveled across the country to storm a capital. No, they're just people going about their lives in their own city, and it was the hostile force that showed up at their doorstep. And if you support that, just imagine it happening to you. Imagine Biden or Obama sending a militarized force of federal agents into your town, demanding to know if you belong there, detaining you and brutalizing you until they can determine if you do belong there, and deliberately taking their time to do it, and possibly charging you with crimes. If anything you do can even remotely be construed.
Oh, and it also keeping you in a fucking concentration camp where they will sodomize and rape you, torture you as well, potentially even kill you, potentially have like a deal with you where they will sexually assault you just so you can see like your family members while you're rotting away in their concentration camps, because this is all stuff that ICE has done.
As resistance, I'm sure you'd just comply like the good servile citizen you are, but how would you feel about it? Would you do anything about it? Would you say anything about it? Would you say anything about your Second Amendment rights?
Well, funnily enough, for a lot of these guys, because this is the same thing that Hitler did, promised like really, really good pay and bonuses for all the freaks that decided to join his, join the fucking SA, right? In a time of economic strife. Why not offer which is the most tantalizing sort of job amongst the fucking federal government, and that is being a paramilitary force for the fucking government. Again, Stephen Miller is a part of, well, Trump's cabinet and administration, more than likely. It was probably him who suggested to do something like that, if I were to take a guess. And, whoa, it turns out the worst of the worst of the worst decided to go along with that specifically. But there's also probably a bunch of people who were economically fucking desperate. And there is a subreddit, specifically of ICE agents, where they were all complaining that they didn't even receive any of the promises or bonuses that Trump was claiming that ICE was going to fucking give them, and they become incredibly fucking demoralized as a fact because they aren't getting fucking paid. It was all a fucking sham. It was all a fucking lie. At the very least, the fucking Nazis had the wherewithal to pay their paramilitary forces the bonuses and payment that they were promising. Trump can't even fucking do that.
And what if it didn't matter how much you complied? What if perfection wasn't enough and they got violent anyway, just to spur a reaction to justify escalation? How would you feel about that? How would you feel about Democrats and liberals and leftists who never set foot in your town laughing at you and telling you that your own town deserves it and that you just need to comply and obey the law, while you know the harsh truth that the ones enforcing the laws are also the ones breaking them? What do you do in that situation? Well, I support it because they need to deport the illegals, you say. So let's ignore the fact that there's much less of a concentration of illegal immigrants in Minnesota than in red states. Obama deported significantly more people than Trump without the need to invade American cities to do it. That is a fact, and it even earned him the nickname Deporter-in-Chief. Under Obama, there were 3.1 million ICE deportations. That would be all the illegal immigrants in Florida and Texas combined. For Trump, it was only 930.
Yeah, from what I recall, the reason why that happened is because it's like a bunch of procedural stuff, right? Right? Not saying that's like a good thing or whatever. From what I understand, the reasoning for as to why that happened is because of a bunch of like asylum claims being overdue and shit like that, and a lot of claimants just like staying their a lot of their claims like much longer than they were supposed to, something like that.
1,000 deportations over his entire 4-year term, double that over 2 terms for Trump, and Obama is still deported 1.2 million more, a difference equivalent to all the illegal immigrants in Florida. Now, the standard argument against that factual comparison is that the population of illegal immigrants did not really change under Obama's presidency because about the same number of people came in as were deported, which is also a fact, but it's a red herring too. People coming in are a different variable than people going out. The fact remains that Obama was better at deportation, even though he was worse at securing borders. And this topic is not about securing borders, it's about how we get people out, not about how we let them in. So it is a matter of historical fact that Trump's deportation tactics are less effective than Obama's. So why do them? Because there's a very different reason for doing them. The nation turns its eyes to Minnesota and it sees unrest, and that's the point. They're not there to arrest illegal immigrants. You're fucking naive if you think that. Minnesota is one of the worst places to go to find illegal immigrants. There's plenty of illegal immigrants in red states. Those are much more.
By the way, this is the exact same thing that was done during the George Floyd fucking protests, right? You're supposed to turn your eyes, see that there's a bunch of lawlessness and unrest in order to be able to justify calling things like the Insurrection Act. It's about manufacturing consent.
Fertile grounds. They go to Minnesota because it's a Democrat stronghold, and this is about political retaliation and securing more power by manufacturing an emergency that demands more power given. They're there for political theater, for the spectacle. And yes, they do go after some illegal immigrants, but that's incidental to their main mission. If they didn't go after any illegal immigrants, it would give up the game. It's not just protesters, media, and the general public who film them. ICE films themselves, not with body cams. They don't have body cams. They film to make propaganda. Their brutality...
Yeah, they make fucking edits all the goddamn time. Who remembers Subway Sandwich Guy? I forgot about the occupation of fucking DC. Completely forgot about that. But Subway Sandwich Guy, dude throws a Subway sandwich at like one of these agents. Dude gets arrested. Let go to go back to his fucking house so then he can get re-arrested by ICE so they can film a propaganda video. Again, this is because they don't actually have any ideological predilections. People who run or who are in the Trump administration, they don't give a shit. For them, it's all about getting their next clip that goes viral on fucking social media. There was leaks about this with Kash Patel in the FBI with like Dan Bongino. It's just like, I need to make sure that I say this on fucking Twitter to go viral and make it look good. And everyone who was, and this was in pertinence to the Charlie Kirk assassination, so to keep that in mind, and all of the officials within the agency of the FBI was just like, what the fuck is why are we talking about how to make this look good on fucking social media? Like, what are we doing here? That's insane.
Simultaneously signals to their base and desensitizes the people to the new normal. There wouldn't have been unrest there if the feds didn't create it. And even if everyone around them behaved like perfect robots, they'd manufacture the conflict anyway. But that's not how people who...
I hope that he does. I hope that he eventually does bring up Nick Shirley, because that's the actual guy who basically created the conditions of the feds to basically go in and basically cause a bunch of fucking chaos after all of the idiotic claims that have been debunked by Nick Shirley himself, because he's too much of an idiot in order to be able to understand why he's a fucking dumbass for a lot of his fucking claims. But whatever. Stupid. Obviously. Very, very stupid. Nick Shirley is incredibly, incredibly fucking dumb. I digress. The thing specifically with all of the reasons for as to why ICE was even there to fucking begin with is because Nick Shirley released a propaganda video claiming that Somalis were doing a bunch of frauds, which was doing a bunch of fraud, when that was already being investigated and looked into by the DOJ, which started under Biden, but whatever, none of these people don't care about that whatsoever, and was finding and working on that case and has already arrested a bunch of people and started working on sentencing them. It's just like, I'm sorry that this is a thing that takes time, but that's how the fucking law works. There's a bunch of paperwork and shit that has to be put in order to fucking catch these fucking bad guys. Like, that's just how it is, man. It's boring. It's not interesting. You can't make viral fucking videos with it, but that's just how it works, dude.
Support ICE see it. They say just comply and everything will be fine. But that's not the reality on the ground. They brutalize people who aren't illegal and who weren't in their way at all. And that's on video. But video doesn't matter to those who support them because justification is assumed, not proved. Assumptions and opinions are so easily conflated with facts and then stated as facts and then mindlessly repeated as facts. The premise is flawed to begin with. Americans going about their daily lives should not have to suddenly comply with the demands of a militarized force from out of state unless we're talking about a real emergency, not a fake one. This is America. We have a First Amendment. We have a Fourth and Fifth Amendment. That means we can express our opinions, even to the authorities, in public, and be in public, in our own towns and cities, and not be retaliated against by an unlawful detention and demands for papers like Nazi checkpoints. Hopefully, the political theater will backfire and galvanize real Americans against them. And if it really were about protecting our homeland, let me ask you something. When a whistleblower created an ICE list website that obtained 4,500 names of ICE and Border Patrol employees from an insider and listed their names on that website, why was this?
I believe that person also got arrested. I know that they've also been putting a bunch of protesters, counter-protesters against ICE on a bunch of lists that DHS has for some reason. Now, why would they be doing that? You have to ask this question. We've taken a look before at all the surveillance tech that ICE, broadly speaking, has in order to surveil people. Why do you think they're gathering all of that information? You should probably ask yourself that very, very important question.
Sustained denial of service attack against that website conducted from Russia. Why would Russia care about protecting the identities of U.S. federal agents?
That's a good point.
Because they like and support how Trump is using the guise of law enforcement to attack American cities. Russia knows that conflict within America weakens America, so they're going to support the real creators of conflict. Russia is not on the side of the protesters. The Russia hoax was not a hoax. Or if it is, and he's not a foreign asset on purpose, then he's absolutely a foreign asset, at least by accident. A useful idiot. Either way, his actions are not in the best interests of Americans. It's in the best interest...
Honestly, like, given all of the bullshit that happened in pertinence to fucking Ukraine, it becomes harder and harder to not make the argument that Trump might just be actually a fucking Russian asset, and that like all the shit that Rachel Maddow was claiming about the Russia hoax was actually true.
of countries like Russia if America is torn apart from within by an internal force using Nazi tactics. And here
well, no, here's the thing. Actually, I'll be honest, Dark Matter. I think that's exactly what Trump wants. I'm going to be honest, right? I think this is exactly what Trump wants. He wants the 90s style of Russia to basically come back, right? The whole shock therapy, everything being on a fire sale, for it to be gobbled all up by these oligarchs so they can start making so much money hand over fist, so then a very specific set of families and oligarchs can get so ridiculously filthy rich, and America essentially becomes a third world country except for a couple of cities that exist on the periphery. Because I've said this before and I'll say it again. Russia is essentially 2 cities in a fucking trench coat. Outside of St. Petersburg and Moscow, it's a complete fucking shithole. Most of Russia doesn't even have basic fucking plumbing. It's that bad.
Here we go with the Nazi accusations, right? But if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck. There's countless examples, but let's just talk about a few.
Occam's
Why
razor.
does the Secretary of Homeland Security have a Nazi slogan on her podium?
That
But
is
wait
a
a
Nazi
minute,
slogan.
It's not a direct quote. It comes from a Spanish fascist movement. Never mind that it was a direct Nazi policy of collective punishment that was repeatedly carried out to brutal effect, a policy that is explicitly against our Constitution and thus has no business on her podium. But let's just give her the benefit of the doubt anyway. Why is the U.S. Department of Labor tweeting things that are nearly identical in content and exactly identical in format to a Nazi slogan?
Same with like DHS, right? Because there's a ton of differing like Groyper interns who have basically written all of these like social media posts where they are just signaling to one another, right? Saying like, don't worry guys, the quote unquote patriots are in control. That's the whole point of it, right?
But the difference is that one says heritage and one says leader, so let's give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Why is the Department of Homeland Security posting military propaganda videos using the Fraktur font, the same font used on the cover of Mein Kampf, including much of the early Nazi propaganda and then later by the neo-Nazis? But technically, the Nazis banned that font in 1941, despite their constant usage of it beforehand. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who shot and killed Renee Good, has a donation page. For no reason, because he's not facing any legal charges and is being protected from even routine investigation by the highest echelons of the government. But why on his donation page does it point out, for no good reason, that the mayor of Minneapolis is Jewish? But let's just give...
And also, where is this donation page? Is this on Give, Send, Go? That's a little interesting. Now, why? Why would Jonathan Ross do this, point out that Jacob Frey is Jewish? It makes you think now, doesn't it? Now, if I recall correctly, most of the people who have done this stuff are all quote-unquote veterans of ICE, which should tell you something specifically, but whatever, that it is a fundamental issue with ICE as an institution, and who it appeals to are specifically the dreck of the dreck of the dreck, right? It is inherently a fascistic paramilitary service that was, put in place by fucking Bush and should have been abolished forever ago by the fucking Democrats, but they never really seem to give much of a shit about that either, because, again, they are also fucking complicit.
No good reason that the mayor of Minneapolis is Jewish, but let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Here's Gregory Bovino, the ICE officer who conducts these military campaigns against American cities. Let me ask you something as you look at this man. How much benefit of the doubt do you give people in your personal life before you realize what they are? How much accumulation of evidence is required before you will call a spade a spade? And there are those who say they're just trolling to get people like me riled up. And maybe that's true, but isn't that my argument, that they're trying to rile people up? And remember that we're talking about the United States government trolling its citizenry by pretending to be Nazis as they invade American cities. It's only trolling if they don't actually do it. And even if they didn't, why would such trolling be acceptable from the United States government anyway?
That's a
what
good
it has
point.
come down to. You see, when it can no longer be denied, when you can no longer be accused of being hysterical and paranoid because you're making Nazi comparisons, it simply becomes trolling. It's like punching your wife as hard as you can and then just saying that you are trolling as an abuser.
By the way, this is the constant tactic of every fucking right-winger, because guess what? They know that they can't admit to it, because if they did admit to it, that's an optical loss. Because again, I'm going to bring up the Jean-Paul Sartre quote yet again. Why don't we just pull that up real quick? Here. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument has passed. They're trying to do the, well, time for argument has passed bit. Unfortunately, they're incredibly incompetent about it.
2 days after an ICE agent murdered a U.S. citizen in Minneapolis, ICE used a song popular with mass shooters in an Instagram post seeking new recruits. By God, we'll have our home. The lyrics to We'll Have Our Home Again are attributed to a neo-Nazi fraternal order, according to the Toronto Holocaust Museum. A white supremacist mass shooter used the lyrics to the song to begin the manifesto he wrote before he murdered 3 black people at a Dollar General in Florida in 2023. The song's title is a Proud Boys slogan and was printed on a banner hanging at an event where Proud Boys members beat a man with a metal pole while shouting homophobic slurs at him. Here are the Proud Boys singing the white supremacist anthem at the California Capitol in 2020. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. So 2 days after one of their agents murdered a U.S. citizen in cold blood, ICE is actively recruiting to be on the streets, masked and armed, fans of mass shooters and neo-Nazis. We have an authoritarian white supremacist government literally full of provably corrupt liars.
As the nation watches such unrest that did not happen since the last time Trump was president, people online endlessly...
I don't know how many times, like being on the left is like, it's such a burden sometimes. It's both a gift and a burden very often, because it's just like, yeah, we've been saying this like the whole entirety of the time that Trump is definitely a fucking fascist, or at the very least also flirts with fucking neo-Nazi stuff. I mean, he had Mein Kampf on his fucking goddamn desk, on his bedroom desk. Keep in mind, like, right beside him in the fucking bedroom. Like, of course, he has flirted with all this shit before. I mean, his dad was in the fucking KKK, for fuck's sake. It's one of those things where it's just like, a spade can be called a spade only for so long. Occam's razor can only be applied for so fucking long, where it's eventually, like, it's so obvious and ridiculous that it's just... you call it out constantly over and over again, and you see these dumbasses constantly denying it over and over again, and you end up just wanting to go crazy, feeling like, what the fuck is going on? But then again, I'm always going to refer to the Jean-Paul Sartre quote. These people delight in the fact that they are dishonest, and that, guess what? These people should never be believed. There's only one way to treat the neo-Nazis and the fascists in general, and that is with derision and contempt. You just make fun of them, and you call them a bunch of kissless, chinless, virgin fucking losers. That's the only way that you can treat these people.
You about what actually happened in these videos. Why? It's on video. You can clearly see it for yourself. Why did 2 people watch the same video and come away with 2 very different conclusions? Well, after accounting for all the people who just lie, as it turns out, what you see in a given video just ends up being a Rorschach test for your politics. Your brain immediately makes a friend-enemy distinction, whether you realize it or not. If your brain were a scale, one side would already be weighted all the way down, so it's going to take extra weight to bring down the other side. In the case of these ICE videos coming out of Minnesota, it's really easy for your brain to just come to conclusions before the altercations take place, because in these videos, one side has uniforms and the other side doesn't, and that primes your brain. So before anything even happens, you already have a side you're rooting for.
Which is how conservative propaganda, broadly speaking, works, right? They did this all the time during the George Floyd protests, constantly, right? They would always use this technique.
That bias is going to inspire motivated reasoning, and you'll end up making excuses. One side will get every charity, every benefit of the doubt, and the other side will get every bad faith interpretation imaginable, to the point where they can only be forgiven if they behave in the most perfect way possible, and sometimes even perfection won't be good enough. And if you knew nothing about me, you'd have no idea which side I'm talking about right now, because yes, both sides do it. Everyone has bias, but that does not mean that both sides are equivalent. No matter the bias of either side, the truth exists, and one side is going to be closer to the truth than the other. But you're never going to know which until you can at least acknowledge your bias and account for it. I know, for instance, that I personally support the protesters and do not support ICE. So when I see an altercation on video, I immediately acknowledge where I stand and try to quiet that voice inside my head so that I can look at things objectively. But that is an extreme case of charity on my part, because I believe that ICE should not even be there in the first place. So everything they do is going to be tainted with that universal variable. Now, someone who supports ICE will say the opposite. They'll say that it's the protesters and agitators who don't belong, and that they should just go home with their families and nothing bad will happen to them. But that's not the America I know. Those people,
like, it doesn't even matter. Even if you fucking go home, it doesn't matter. Like, ICE will just break down your fucking door in violation of the 4th Amendment. Like, for fuck's sake, there had to be and this was a leak gotten from someone who worked within ICE, formerly within ICE, from that Ken Klippenstein got, where they had to have a PowerPoint and spent like a couple hours talking to these dunce caps what the 4th Amendment is. And how they might be fucking violating the 4th Amendment because they didn't even know what the 4th Amendment was. You know, for all these American quote-unquote patriots, they never really seem to care about any of the basis or main documentations that they purport to care about so much that, I don't know, birth the country that they currently fucking live in.
Will have every right to be out in public in their own neighborhoods, in their own city, in their own state. They have every right to film, to protest, and to make noise, no matter how much the feds don't like it. And the real agitators are the feds. That's why there was no agitation until they arrived.
They're just randomly snatching people, just kidnapping them.
Mask police, fuck you! Fuck you, mask police! Take your fucking mask off! Yep, and look at that, then get out of Dodge! Fuck y'all, fuck you! Yep, and then just leave the carnage. Fucking assholes.
Yep, they're assholes. Take the guy, leave the
There's
carnage.
video of the aftermath of a car wreck. I'm not sure how the accident happened, but it looked like the car hit a pole. And ICE agents pile on top of this woman alongside the car wreck as she screams that she'll show them her ID and that she's an American citizen. But they brutally restrain her, throw her into the back of one of their unmarked vehicles, and just leave. No ambulance is called, no medical attention is given on the scene of a serious accident, no police are involved to do an accident report, or to tow the vehicle, or to direct traffic. None of that. They just leave the wrecked vehicle there, abandoned, a danger for the other commuters to contend with. They did the same thing to another motorist, just pulled him out of his car, and the car coasted across the road toward people on a sidewalk because the car was in drive. An agent chases it down, puts it in park, and then just leaves it in the middle of the road, and they all get in their unmarked vehicles and take off.
That's fucking insane, by the way.
What the hell are you guys doing? Get out of our city! You're not making our city safer! Shame on all of you! Aren't you gonna move the car?
No.
I got it.
By the way, for all the, like, soy-jacking fucking morons who say, like, well, this isn't an example of this is exactly what authoritarianism looks like in the fucking movies, okay? This is what it looks like, conservatives. For all of the, like, crying, bitching, moaning, and fucking complaining that you had about, like, vaccine mandates, for fuck's sake, during COVID, decrying how it's an incredibly authoritarian fucking measure. No, this is what it actually fucking looks like. Random dudes in unmarked vehicles, in masks, just running about, just coming out of the vehicles, and just snatching up people off the streets. This is what it actually fucking looks like. But do you guys care about any of that? Of course not. Because none of you people ever had or ever will have any principles about this, because you guys are okay with it.
What conclusion am I supposed to draw from that? How can I see such unprofessionalism and conclude that ICE was in the right and that they're not doing more harm than good? ICE doesn't follow the traffic laws, even when there's no emergency at all, because they were told that they have absolute immunity.
Today, as I was responding to an ICE sighting, I watched a Ford Explorer filled with ICE agents blow through a stop sign, T-bone someone on accident, and then kidnap the driver that they T-boned. That was their way of cleaning up their mess. This was not someone they were pursuing. It was not someone, a suspect on their list. This was not even a protester. They just blew through a stop sign, accidentally T-boning someone, and instead of calling police and waiting for an ambulance because they didn't want to stick around for the scene, instead they got out of their Ford Explorer, approached the driver's side broken window of the vehicle that they hit. They ripped that driver from his vehicle, threw him in the back of their Ford Explorer, driving off, kidnapping this man. That was their way of cleaning up their today. We're not okay.
Minnesota has a lot of roundabouts, and these ICE agents just drive around in circles in the roundabouts, denying access to the roads people need to use to get home, the roads they paid for with their tax dollars. Just thugs intimidating people because they know they won't get in trouble for it. There's countless video after video of ICE randomly demanding the IDs of pedestrians, and if they don't give it, or worse, they don't have it, then they throw them in an unmarked vehicle and take them away. Nazi.
And guess who decided to give them the authorization to do that? The Supreme fucking Court. If they look a little Hispanic, they walk a little Hispanic, and they talk a little Hispanic, ICE now has the authority, as given from these wizards from on high, in order to be able to just grab them, detain them, and start questioning them. Racial fucking profiling. Like, unironic fucking racial profiling. Because, again, it's not just the administration that's fucking rotten. It's a lot of the institutions as well.
Do we not have Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights anymore? If you're driving behind an unmarked...
No, because the Supreme Court said, well, ICE can just racially profile people.
ICE vehicle, and you don't even know it. They can just stop suddenly, surround you, point guns at you, threaten you, and kidnap you.
Stop fucking following us. You are impeding operations. This is the United States federal government. This is your warning. All right? Go home to your kids. Go to church. Go home to your kids. This is your last warning. I will arrest you.
Let the people.
I guarantee you're not gonna like the outcome. Go home to your children. It's Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Let people go to church.
Did you not learn from what just happened? Go home.
Learn what?
Oh, this is what I'm motherfucking doing. No, for what? You follow us again. I work around here. I work around here. I work around here. I work for the city.
Thugs, dude.
I drive around here every day. I drive around here every day. You can record everything. I work around here. I work around here. I'm not talking to you. I'll talk to you because you're more calm. I'll talk to you because you're more calm. I'm not talking to you. This is a warning. This is a warning. Do not follow us. Do not follow us. Take a picture of it. Take a picture of it. I'll talk to you.
By the way, the reason why they're mad about people following them is because, again, it's not illegal. They can follow you if you want. There's nothing you can do about it. First Amendment, motherfucker. They're allowed to do that. You can go and see about it. The reason why they're so mad about it is because we've been given absolute immunity to do whatever we want. So why are all these like weirdos following us and recording us and trying to hold us accountable for our actions? Because these people are all rapists of the mind, body, and soul, and they don't give a shit about this. If they feel like they can just get away with it, they'll just do it. They don't care. They don't care. It doesn't matter. Laws, they don't understand the laws. They're too stupid to understand the fucking laws. They don't care about the rule of law. These people are all abhorrent fucking demons. Barely humans, I'll be quite honest. And this is why I say consistently, you cannot have a society with these people. They have to be socially ostracized. They have to be completely disenfranchised. You cannot have these people living in the same society as you do. They have to be completely and utterly ostracized in every way, shape, and form. I don't really give a shit anymore. Fuck these people. They don't believe in the social contract. They don't believe in society. They don't believe in laws. They don't believe in any of this stuff. Again, Jean-Paul Sartre quote, withstanding, because all of this is inherently interchangeable and describes these people to a fucking T.
This is my property around here. Fuck you, punk. I work around here. This is my job.
And you could have just been on your way to work, or home, or church. Because that's your city, where you live. And they are the outsiders who think you're following them. And yes, there are people who do follow them. But as a terrorized community, why wouldn't they be followed?
Yep, they attack kids at high schools. Yep, they just, by the way, this is something that ICE does all the time. They just sit by schools, and just sit there in order to just snatch kids. Kidnapping. And we all know that these guys are all rapists. They're all child abusers. So who knows if they're just snatching a kid in order to have a new fucking victim for them to rape. Who even knows how much pedophilia that might have happened in fucking ICE concentration camps? We don't know. We'll have no idea.
There's videos of them just violently grabbing and beating people. Should you expect to go into an American city and do that, and for the community to not take notice and not want to keep track of you? Look at this guy standing there filming. This guy got pushed for no reason.
Get back! Get back! Get back! Get back! Don't touch me! Get back! Don't touch me!
Yep, they're just aggressive little fucking freaks. See, started fighting him for like literally no reason. These people, they're thugs. They're not human. Period. Not human.
And he just reflexively tried to block the agent's hands from pushing him. And a half dozen guys jumped him, and they surrounded him with what looked like a full platoon of soldiers. And they pressed his face into the cold concrete merely for having a very human reflexive action, for not being impossibly servile at a biological level, to the point in which you can resist even your own reflexes. Just a random sorry sap at a gas station who wanted to exercise his right to film what ICE was doing at a perfectly respectable distance from them. He was not interfering, but now he'll have a criminal record because his reflexes caused him to touch the hand of the agent that violently pushed him for no reason. And these ICE agents are threatening people with deadly violence by referencing what happened to Renee Good, who was killed by an ICE agent. They use her death as a way to intimidate.
Shame on you.
Of course.
Have you not learned from the past couple of days? Have you not learned?
Learned what? What's our lesson here? What do you want us to learn?
Yeah, go, exactly. Let people go to church.
Learn from what just happened. Go home. Learn what?
How can even a completely objective...
I'm going to be honest, like, they are just... Because here's the thing. Their killing of Renee Nicole Good, their killing of Alex Preddy, their killing, constant fucking abuses of civil liberties of people, they're only welcoming more violence. Because, again, this is kind of the point, right? They do violence, they welcome more violence against them, and guess what? That's the justification of the Trump administration, because this is exactly what they want. Because do you think Trump cares about any of these people? Of course not. For him, these are all a bunch of sacrificial fucking lambs. They are sacrificial lambs, pawns, to use in order to get more fucking power for himself. As Dark Matter mentioned himself earlier, and he's correct when he says that. These people are sacrificial forces on this, I don't know, like political game of chess, I guess for lack of a better term, for Trump and the Republican Party to secure more power for themselves, to have a dictatorship under themselves. That is the point of all of this.
Outside observer watch these events unfold and conclude that ICE is being lawful and reasonable. If you think the citizens of that community are interfering with specific ICE operations that target known violent illegal aliens, and that these people of Minnesota are just unwittingly protecting rapists and murderers, then ask yourself this: why is Kristi Noem urging Americans to carry proof of citizenship as ICE raids intensify?
Papers,
if their
please.
actions are so targeted, then why do we have to carry around our birth certificates now? This video would have to be hours long to include all...
By the way, same thing that's going on with the fucking SAVE Act. They want you to carry your birth certificate or passport in order to fucking vote now. Unironically, making it such that 140 million people, I think is the estimate, of people are not going to be able to vote because guess what? You have to pay like $160 to own a passport in the United States of America. Most people are not able to fucking do that. So guess what? They're not going to be allowed to vote. Like, again, for all of these charlatans and fucking freaks, only one thing matters to them. It's all about accumulating more and more power for themselves.
Many outlandish and unwarranted attacks the federal government has inflicted upon the people of Minnesota. But there's one event that stands out among all the others. I want to talk about what happened to Renee Good. Up until this point, I've argued with people who claimed to have seen completely different things than I did. And almost without fail, you can predict their political affiliation based on what they claimed to have seen, or what they think is relevant, or what they think the people involved intended to do. Each side claims that every angle from every video vindicates whichever party they support. And the way we talk past each other is that we assume the other side accepts our interpretation of events. So when they either accept or don't accept the outcome as justified, the other side sees them as liars, doing damage control, because they assume their own framing of events. But that's bad faith. And that's why it would be a complete waste of my time and energy to relitigate that shooting using the video, as countless others have already done.
Yeah, there's no point.
As a result. What I learned is that it doesn't even matter if I go through it frame by frame, because it doesn't convince someone who is ideologically captured, and it doesn't convince someone who knows that neither party involved had the benefit of assessing the situation they were in frame by frame. And the sad state of affairs is that they get to just say the same thing about me. They can make the same claim that I'm seeing something that's not there, as I accuse them of seeing something that's not there, and then we're left at a maddening impasse. It doesn't matter if I throw...
Well, the thing is that they want it to be a maddening fucking impasse on purpose, because they don't actually... Again, words mean nothing to these people. You just call them a bunch of fucking troglodytes, call them slurs and simps to authority, that they would basically want the monarchy to come back if they could, and you just move on with your life. You say, wow, you're fucking stupid, you're barely human, and are barely capable of thinking, you can go fuck yourself, and then you move on with their life. That's it. That's all you can really do with these quote-unquote people.
And Orwellian quoted them like, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears, because they can just repeat it back to me, and I'm in no position to deny it. It doesn't matter if I tell them about the Asch conformity experiments, which show that people can be affected by group pressure into believing things that are obviously wrong, because they can just repeat that back to me, and I'm human. I'm affected in psychology, so who am I to say that they're wrong? What do you do in such a situation? People uploaded videos, analyzing angles, making diagrams, and doing recreations. You have Steven Crowder standing in front of a car in a parking lot doing his worthless reenactment, reminiscent of when he had someone kneel on his back to prove
Same thing with George Floyd, yep.
It just became a ridiculous cacophony that didn't convince anybody. There was a point in which I was all ready and anxious to go through the video with you and point everything out, but I realized how worthless that would be. Instead of doing what everyone else does and repeatedly stare at videos that everyone already interprets differently, let's just reduce it to the bare minimum facts that everyone can agree upon. Is self-defense the reason given for the shooting? Yes. Did the agent survive? Yes. Did the driver survive? No. What was the physical danger the driver faced? A firearm. What was the physical danger the agent faced? A 2-ton SUV.
Well,
was the agent within at least a few feet of the vehicle before it started moving? Yes. Did shooting the driver immediately halt the momentum of a 2-ton vehicle?
Nope.
No. Would there be a reasonable expectation that shooting the driver would immediately halt the momentum of a 2-ton vehicle?
Nope.
No.
By the way, that's the same thing that Asmongold himself was fucking arguing, because, again, he's like a troglodyte who thinks that everything is a fucking video game, but then again, like I said before, like, for all of this, you just bring up the fucking... I'm just going to keep deferring constantly to the Jean-Paul Sartre quote, because they don't... Like, these people, they don't believe in anything. There is no point in fucking belief for these people. There's no reasoning with their positions, because they believe in nothing. You can't reason with these people. They don't care about reason. They don't care about words, because words are also things to be played with. Nothing fucking matters to these people. Period. End of story.
Is getting out of the way of a moving vehicle.
So, like, it's not that I have, like, a problem with what dark matter is doing here, but we just have to acknowledge that these people they believe in fucking nothing. They don't believe in anything. They don't believe in the social contract. They don't believe in society. They don't believe in humanity, which is why the only proper sort of thing that you can do with a lot of these fascists is to just ostracize them from the rest of society. Why should you live with them? Why should you share a space with them? They don't believe in the same spaces that you do. They don't. What is the point of living with them? Why should they be around? Why should I have to tolerate their existence? As they will, always dishonestly mention the paradox of fucking intolerance. Like, get the fuck out of here. Why should I tolerate your intolerance? I shouldn't have to do that. You go fuck yourselves.
Best way to not be hit by that moving vehicle? Yes. Does getting out of the way of a moving vehicle require shooting a gun? No. Is it possible that aiming and shooting a gun will actually delay getting out of the way of a moving vehicle? Yes. Was the agent holding a gun in his right hand and a phone in his left hand? Yes. Did he drop either his phone or his gun throughout the entire altercation? No. Did he shoot her at least 2 more times through the driver's side window while he was next to the vehicle? Yes. Were there other people near the agent when he fired his gun? Yes.
Keep in mind, what Jonathan Ross did is explicitly not only against protocol for every police department across America, but also ICE's own fucking protocols as well in training. What he did was just, like, In every way, shape, and form, Jonathan Ross is the only one, like, is completely and utterly in the wrong in terms of that altercation, but conservatives will defend him anyways, because again, these people don't believe in anything.
Was the vehicle's accelerator pegged after he shot her? Yes. Did that cause the vehicle to speed down a neighborhood street until it collided with other cars where its engine continued to redline even after it was stopped? Yes. Was that a potential danger to the general public? Yes. Those are the facts, and they are not up for interpretation or dispute. What caused the agent to not be killed was not the firing of a gun, but rather the positioning of the car and of his body as they related to each other. That is where disagreement has room to slip in, because some could say that he was not killed because he moved himself out of the way, while others could say that he was not killed because she turned her car to the right, out of his way. Or you could even say that it was a combination of the two, but what you cannot say is that it was the firing of a gun that caused him to not be killed by a moving vehicle. In fact, taking aim and firing a gun would make it more difficult to get out of the way, because you're adding additional tasks to something that's very urgent. So the point of contention, the deadly action he took, cannot be self-defense, but rather, ironically, the very thing that got in the way of his actual self-defense, because priority one for his safety involved the movement of his body and her car. And in the wake of an action that did literally nothing to contribute to his self-defense, an exponentially more dangerous situation was created by sending an uncontrolled 2-ton vehicle speeding down a neighborhood street. We have to conclude that firing his gun was deadly to her, dangerous to others, and in no way contributed to his self-defense. But we as Americans are conditioned to think that self-defense looks like firing a gun. Whatever the problem is, just fire a gun at it, even if that would do nothing to help you. A freight train is coming at you, just fire a gun at it. Self-defense. A nuclear bomb goes off and the shockwave is coming straight at you, well, just fire a gun at it. Self-defense. It's very clear to me that she was just trying to flee, and if he did not shoot her, they'd both be alive today, which makes it a completely unnecessary shooting. And it doesn't matter if he didn't know her intention at the time, or didn't know if she was going to drive straight at him.
And by the way, keep in mind, like, the ICE agents are completely in the wrong, just even before all of this, because what Dark Matter here is saying is not wrong. What he's saying is correct here. The ICE vehicle, like, cause she was parked to the fucking side, she was waving them fucking forward for them to go, right? And then the dumbass, Jonathan Ross, was, like, recording her just, like, walking around the fucking vehicle the entirety of the time. And then all the other, like, troglodytes decided to get out to try to get her out of the fucking vehicle, because for whatever reason they thought that she was in the way, when she was not. We've all seen the fucking video. She was not in the fucking way, unless you're demented or something, your eyes barely work, but whatever. And she was waving the other vehicles to start going forward, which is a normal thing for any fucking goddamn driver to do. Anything. Just normal. Perfectly fucking normal. And what do these people do? Get out of the fucking vehicle and try to arrest her. Stupid. It's ridiculous. In every single instance of the interaction, of the altercation, ICE was in the wrong. Period. End of story.
At him or turn away from him, because in each instance, a bullet still doesn't stop the momentum of a 2-ton vehicle at that close distance, period. So fear for his life and not knowing which way the car is going to go have nothing to do with the validity of illogically firing a gun in that situation. Is that just my opinion as a know-nothing layman, internet influencer, Monday morning quarterback? Nope. 13 years ago, there was an internal review of the U.S. Border Patrol by the Police Executive Research Forum. Their research is supposed to help law enforcement determine best practices for use of force. You know what their internal review...
I'm sorry to say they're Dark Matter. They're not going to give a shit about any of that, because all these people are anti-intellectual. They believe, again, in nothing.
Found? Well, you can read about it in this article that was published in 2014, which is titled, U.S. Border Agents Intentionally Stepped in Front of Moving Vehicles to Justify Shooting at Them. Now, needless to say, the Police Executive Research Forum did not find that to be a good use of force. I'll leave a link to their report below, but if you check page 8 of their report under Shooting at Vehicles, it says, quote, it should be recognized that a half-ounce, 200-grain bullet is unlikely to stop a 4,000-pound moving vehicle, and if the driver of the approaching vehicle is disabled by the bullet, the vehicle will become a totally unguided threat. Obviously, shooting at a moving vehicle can pose a risk to bystanders, including other agents. The cases suggest that some of the shots at suspect vehicles are taken out of frustration when agents who are on foot have...
So again... Not that I disagree with what Dark Matter is doing here specifically, but it's the same criticisms that I have of specifically the Birdman, right? Of a lot of, like, well-intentioned progressive liberals, which I would say Dark Matter is. Same with someone like Birdman, if I were to slap a political label on them. Well-intentioned liberals who are progressives, I would say. There is no point in citing all of these facts in studies to any of these people, because they don't care. They don't give a shit about any of this stuff. They've never cared about any of this stuff. They are explicitly anti-intellectual. They don't believe in anything. They don't even believe in words. They believe in nothing. They just thought it was good to shoot Renee Nicole Good because they thought it was good to shoot Renee Nicole Good. The same thing I said in the Asmongold video about when Birdman was debunking and inherently, like, making Asmongold, like, look ridiculous. There's no point in debunking someone like Asmongold because he doesn't believe in anything. He believes in fucking nothing. Words are anathema to his existence. using his brain is anathema to his existence. He doesn't believe in anything. They will just say things because it sounds good to their audience at the time. That's all that they fucking care about. Appealing to the fucking cult. That is it. These people don't believe anything. They don't agree with like words. They don't agree with the tenets of society. They don't agree with anything whatsoever. So there's only one way forward with these people. Ostracize and ignore them. That is the only way forward, because these people, fundamentally speaking, should not be engaged with whatsoever, because at the very least, for democracy and civil society to actually function, people need to believe in the existence of words in order to be able to go forward. It's like I've said before, with the death of subjectivity and the death of critical education and thinking, or critical thinking and education within the United States of America. It has made it such that something like this is allowed to fester and now bloom onto the scene. All of these like far-right, neo-Nazi fucking freaks are allowed to essentially come up and promulgate themselves because of the fact that education and critical thinking is something that is no longer valued within the United States of America. And guess who's this works in the favor of? All the fucking oligarchs. Because this is exactly what they fucking want. To have a servile, submissive population who are not going to question all that much when they have obvious fucking abuses that are done to them. Because guess what? All these like dipshits, they're just going to take their fucking Trump sloppy toppies and not really think about any of the consequences for what they believe in. Because they believe in absolutely fucking nothing. They don't care. They just want to be a bunch of submissives to a higher authority. That is it.
Have no other way of detaining suspects who are fleeing in a vehicle. Most reviewed cases involve non-violent suspects who pose no threat other than a moving vehicle. There is little doubt that the safest course for an agent faced with an oncoming vehicle is to get out of the way of the vehicle. CBP policy should be, agents shall not discharge their firearms at or from a moving vehicle unless deadly physical force is being used against a police officer or another person present by means other than a moving vehicle. Those words were addressed to immigration agents 13 years before Renee Good was killed. And those words perfectly described what happened 13 years after they were written. That's not Monday morning quarterbacking, folks. That's a 13-year-old warning label that was ignored. And so the very thing it warned about ended up happening.
Yep,
and
they don't
sad
care.
that such a warning label is even needed, because it's just basic physics. It's what I concluded before I even read their review. It's what you should have concluded before I told you about their review. And it's what the agent who shot Renee should have fucking known before he shot her, especially since this was an issue that was already internally...
Sorry, but I don't think they know what basic physics is.
Addressed with the immigration enforcement agents. Are you starting to see why the FBI, headed by Trump's loyalists and not politically independent as it should be, moved so quickly to block even a standard investigation that is literally done with every use of deadly force, justified or not? Why does this case get the special treatment? Why did the Vice President of the United States immediately declare that the agent has, quote, absolute immunity before there's even an investigation? Now, maybe you think you would have done the same thing even if there was no chance for your bullets to stop the car, because you'd be pissed too. Maybe you would see it as reckless disregard for your life, so you'd squeeze off a few rounds because fuck her. And even the agent himself called her a fucking bitch after he killed her. Understandable to be mad, right? Yeah, okay, sure, but squeezing off a few rounds out of anger in the spur of the moment is called second-degree murder. But here's the sad thing, as if it weren't already sad enough. This is a cycle. Pretty soon, most people are going to stop talking about the killing of Renee Good, because other things are going to happen and we're going to move on to those things. This has happened before many times, and this will happen again many times. That's the cycle. Kill, argue, kill, argue, kill, argue. And in each case, everyone is going to have these exact same conflicts where we go through the events and come to totally different conclusions. That's going to happen again and again and again, and we're going to go through this whole process again and again and again. And we all...
Yeah, that's already fucking happened. I mean, it was mentioned in the follow-up video to this specifically by Dark Matter by Alex Preddy, but I don't know. At this point, like, there's really not much else I can really fucking add to or say to this, because that I'm not just going to inherently agree with, and I'm just going to be offering basically nothing in terms of additional sort of commentary. I almost just want to fucking cut it off here. I'm going to be honest. What else is there to really say? Like, the problem is, and what we're basically sort of need to acknowledge is that we are dealing with a populace of people who do not believe in words. They don't believe in anything. Because what is the point of fucking belief when justifying these particular actions? There's no point in belief whatsoever. It doesn't fucking matter to these people. They don't care. They don't give a shit. Because guess what? In their minds, the United States is an inherent carcass that needs to be torn away and reborn in their own fucking image.
You all know it. That's insanity. And you know what else is going to happen? Just like this time, and just like the many times prior, There are saboteurs, dishonest, hateful people who try to hijack the conversation by using manufactured details or completely unrelated details so that people are swayed by being misled. Some of the ways they did this with Renee Good was that after she was killed, people manufactured fake criminal records for her. She had a clean record,
of course,
so they made fake ones. Because in their minds, criminals are inherently more eligible to be killed, and they have less sympathy for them. So if your life is ended in a controversial police killing and you have no criminal record, you will have a fake one before your body is even cold. That's the world we live in now. Some were so bad that they claimed...
Yeah, a bunch of these were, like, this shit was fucking insane. They used AI in order to fabricate a bunch of criminal records on Renee Nicole Good in order to, again, activate the fucking lizard brain. Oh, of course they claimed Renee Nicole Good, who is a lesbian, that there is domestic abuse and also child endangerment prosecutions on her. Of course, that doesn't really surprise me whatsoever, that they would also be incredibly fucking homophobic about this. But whatever, we're talking about the current makeup of the right wing at this moment. They can inherently make it about, I don't know, like some fucking homophobic bullshit to make it look as bad as possible. They'll do it. They don't give a shit. No standards for these people. They're all demons. It doesn't matter. They used AI to just fabricate a bunch of fucking misinformation about Renee Nicole Good. Bullshit. Just rank propaganda bullshit. There's no point in like talking about this. It's obviously all fucking fake. There's no evidence for this whatsoever because you can look it up for yourself. Obviously, there's going to be news reports about this and publicly publicly available records about all of this. So they just have to make shit up in order to justify their fucking narratives. It's disgusting. These people are demons.
She was born in 1980, 8 years before she was actually born, and that she was not, in fact, the 37-year-old she was, but a 35-year-old, born 46 years ago. Now, despite all the many mistakes, the fake criminal records spread, and others corrected the mistakes as they were pointed out, and they fooled a lot of people who then used those fake records in arguments, bad arguments, even if there were real records, because that's who we're dealing with, dumb people. The lies aren't even in service to good arguments. They're in service to character assassination, and there is no argument for making fake records. You have to agree that it's deliberate deception. Some people made fake AI videos of Renee and her wife, making fun of Charlie Kirk's death.
Pew, pew.
Even though this fake video shows that Renee's wife had 2 thumbs on her right hand, people still believed it. It accomplished its goal of generating or confirming the bias against a woman who was killed. What are we going?
Like I said, death of education and critical thinking within the United States of America have made it such that these cattle can easily fall for rank like AI propaganda like this. Like I said before, there's no path forward besides like social ostracization for these people and education for them, like unironically.
What are you going to do when the AI videos don't have these mistakes anymore? Let me ask you something. If you're so confident that Renee Good was in the wrong and that killing her was the right thing to do, then why are you manufacturing this stuff to convince people rather than just pointing at the truth? It's like I always say, if the truth is on your side, why lie? And it's not just those dishonest tactics that are always repeated. It's also the rhetoric, which is basically standard at this point. It's like a template. You could make a police killing propaganda script with just blanks to fill in the name of the deceased and use it over and over again. Because that's basically the equivalent to what actually happens. That's how predictable it is. Immediately after Renee Good was killed, it was as if a bunch of influencers simultaneously received the exact same talking points, comparing the outrage over her death to the lack of outrage that the same people had for Charlie Kirk's death. Of course, they immediately compared the protests against Renee's death to the lack of protests against criminals who murdered people. It amazes me that people fall for rhetoric like that. It's as if they don't know what protests are and when they are actually effective. If a guy murders somebody and he is immediately captured and jailed as he should be, then what the fuck would you be protesting? It makes no sense. The guy in jail wouldn't care about a protest, and future murderers wouldn't care about a protest. It's not going to deter them. You know who cares about protests? Entities that care about their image and reputation. Politicians, organizations, companies, corporations, governments, etc. Those are the groups that care about protests. A murderer going to jail is not grounds for protest. A federal agent who kills a woman and then rather than getting even a standard investigation is immediately protected by the highest echelons of the government is a very good...
By the way, all these people who constantly say that there has to be protests for this, they will never go out to protest themselves. Because they don't care. They don't care. They see, like, protests as, like, this liberal cucked fucking bullshit that only the lib cucks do. So why should these, like, quote-unquote base trad conservatives engage in any of this? Meh. They won't do it. Because they don't believe in it.
Good goddamn reason to protest. Do not pretend like you don't understand the difference. Sometimes people say the stupidest shit in their hunt for hypocrisy. But the different reactions have nothing to do with hypocrisy and everything to do with just basic common sense. All that's required on your part is a modicum of thought that isn't ideologically motivated. And then you won't make that embarrassing mistake that all these idiot influencers keep making. But it doesn't really matter to them because they never receive that social punishment of shame. They just shit out these awful statements and move on to the next thing with zero consequences for it. On the contrary, it usually...
There's a really good point there by Dark Matter. Like... shame no longer fucking exists. I mean, it's broadly the byproduct of commodified media environment that we find ourselves under, right? And like I said with the death of subjectivity, stuff like that only gets significantly worse because of this media environment that we find ourselves under, making it such that shame, ostracization, are no longer sort of options, because unfortunately for all these like dumbass companies, there is money to be made.
Results in revenue. So there's incentive to do it and no incentive not to do it.
Like I said
Another
before.
person they keep bringing up in response to the shooting of Renee Good thousands of times across
Irina
thousands of
Zarutska?
influencers is Irina Zarutska. Her death was extremely disturbing and tragic. She was a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee trying to start a new life in North Carolina. But as she was on her phone minding her own business, she was brutally stabbed to death in a completely unprovoked attack by a complete stranger who was sitting behind her on public transit. That man was a diagnosed schizophrenic homeless man who was immediately captured and jailed for the murder he committed. He claimed that there were materials in his body that other people were using to control what he did, and they caused him to attack her. The vulture influencers and their many misled followers call it hypocrisy that there were no nationwide protests because of her death. Notice that
what protests are there supposed to be? Like Dark Matter mentioned earlier, the dude got jailed immediately. And by the way, he's been in jail multiple times. In fact, he's been in and out of jail, which again is the byproduct of cash or no cash bail right there, right? And the problem is specifically with the or not the problem, like there's a lot of oversight issues and problems, right? I do think that at some particular point in time, because that guy was he went into jail multiple times for a lot of his like general actions, and we all know the problem with the U.S. System in terms of jails. It basically highly incentivizes you to either just go back into fucking jail or just stay in fucking jail, because if you have a criminal record, which going to jail will give you, being able to get back on your own 2 feet is extremely fucking challenging. And recidivism and people going back to jail is the more likely fucking outcome. But, not that no cash bail is necessarily a bad thing. There's a potential oversight with the fucking system, making it such that even though there is no cash bail, someone who probably should get the help that they need, which this I forget the name of the guy, the schizophrenic homeless black man who needed help and wasn't getting any of it because of the deeply flawed, fucked up system that is the United States of America, is not getting any of the fucking help that he needs, because what he needs is medical attention, not to be constantly sent into jail over and over and over and over and over again. There has to be a social safety net. That's why these things fucking exist, but Republicans don't agree with that. They don't agree with social safety nets. Everything has to be inherently punitive for these people, because what they would do specifically, what the homeless black man there, is to just throw him in jail in like solitary confinement and throw away the key, because that's what they want in reality.
That the people complaining did not protest either. But that doesn't matter, because this is about pointing the finger at others. It's not about doing anything real and helpful to prevent future murders like Irina's, like advocating and working for more effective treatment for the mentally ill, rather than just abandoning them to the streets with the impotent hope that they don't hurt themselves or others. In fact, as they blame Democrats for being soft on crime, because
like
the guy
I
had a
said,
criminal history, the Republican government of North Carolina cut funding for the sort of facilities that would have treated that man's condition. So,
no, whoa, shocker. Whoa, I'm so surprised. Wow, all these fucking conservatives constantly preach, moaning, bitching, complain about like personal responsibility and people being able to fucking try to fix themselves, but will do everything possible to defund the ways for that to essentially happen. So stupid, man.
Murder of Irina out of the thousands of other murders that happened that year in America, as many thousands of murders happen every year in America. Why did she become their rallying cry? Why do they make cartoons of what happened to her? They love pointing out when foreigners kill Americans, but in this case, it was an American killing a foreigner, someone with refugee status even, and we all know how they feel about asylum seekers coming to America. So why the sudden change of heart? As you look at this cartoon they made of the moment before her murder, as you look at it, what would you think is the reason they flip the script when they focus on
He's black. He's black.
Her murder? The truth is that they never really gave a shit about Irina. If anything, they made her life more difficult and stressful with all the anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies they fight for, and even the anti-Ukrainian rhetoric they spewed just because Biden tried to aid Ukraine in their war efforts. What Irina did witness not long before her death was the president of her homeland being berated in the White House by Trump, which was cheered on by MAGA and Russia as her country suffered an actual, real invasion. What she likely witnessed was conservative influencers calling her country, Ukraine, the enemy of America. And now, the same people who did nothing but contribute to the hardships of her life and cut the mental health treatment of the man who killed her use her corpse as a political weapon to score points in arguments that aren't even good. But Irina is the outlier. Usually they only like to point out the cases in which an illegal immigrant murders an American, which actually happens at a much lower rate than it does for Americans murdering other Americans. So if your concern was actually murder...
Yeah, for these people, it's all about the politics. They don't care. There's no justification. They don't believe in anything. They don't believe in this stuff. It's all the fucking politics with these people. That's it. Like, I don't know. It's silly. It's ridiculous. Like, what are you supposed to... How are you supposed to deal with these people? You can't deal with these people. You can't.
It would be counterproductive to focus on illegal immigrants because they have a much lower murder rate than Americans do. So what they like to do is hyper-focus on specific deaths. There's usually a couple thousand children who are murdered each year in the United States. Trump picked a little girl who was murdered by an illegal immigrant. And in a big announcement before a huge audience, Trump named a wildlife refuge after her, which is a very nice thing to do. But why did he pick her out of the couple thousand other children that were murdered that year? And why did he make a big spectacle out of it? Well, because her death was politically useful to him. That's why. It wasn't about honoring her. It was about using her for his agenda to get rid of illegal immigrants. Well, actually, his agenda to pretend like he cares about getting rid of illegal immigrants so he can use that as a pretext to do other things. But to get rid of illegal immigrants by painting them as a danger, when really they're less of a danger than Americans. If you ended all immigration, it would not even put a tiny dent in our murder rate. But that fact is not useful to the rhetoric. That's why the Democrats did not stand up during his State of the Union speech when he honored some victims of illegal immigrants, because he wasn't really honoring them. He was using them as political props. It's the exact same dynamic.
But here's the problem, because again, I have to this is important to fucking mention. The Democrats also have culpability in terms of creating this environment. Because of the fact there was so much fucking anti-immigrant rhetoric, specifically because of the Venezuelan migrant crisis that happened, that Trump caused himself because of sanctions that he slapped on the Venezuelan, economy due to the fact that he had a failed coup attempt in fucking 2019. He slapped harsh sanctions because he got fucking salty that his coup attempt happened. Failed miserably. What happened? Inevitably, a bunch of migrants left the country to try to find, better fucking environment for themselves in order to be able to live. So eventually, a bunch of them ended up in America. Doi, obviously. And what did the Republicans do instantaneously? Demonize them. Because that's what they always do. Because they don't believe in anything. For them, it is only about one thing and one thing only. Acquiring more and more and more power for themselves. These people are all, fundamentally speaking, grifters. They don't believe in anything. They don't believe in the social contract. They don't believe in words. Again, Jean-Paul Sartre quote, withstanding. I'm going to keep referring to this over and over and over again, which is why when Democrats decided not to put up any counter narratives to all of the lies that the Republicans were constantly spewing about fucking migrants who were coming up to the United States of America as a byproduct of Trump's fucking policies, it is incredibly fucking hypocritical because they caused the situation, because Republicans don't have any policy to run on, because they don't believe in actual fucking policy. So they'll just manufacture a bunch of crises, a bunch of terrible policies that will cause actual fucking migrant waves so they have something to run on politically. They do this constantly, all the fucking goddamn time, over and over and over and over and over again, because these people believe in nothing.
You get when they say, why are you sending money overseas when you should be spending it on homeless vets? And then the same fucking people quietly cut funding for homeless vets. Homeless vets are a political prop when it suits the argument. But when the rubber meets the road and it comes time to put your money where your mouth is, homeless vets are completely forgotten. And they did the exact same thing when Trump told Republicans to reject the...
Again, same thing with fucking Democrats. They'll alleviate the situation and make it slightly better for a lot of these disadvantaged populations. But do they actually provide any of the root fixes for these problems? They never will, right? Ever. We have to acknowledge that the Republicans are significantly worse in terms of all of this, but we can't sort of forget about the fact that there is another party in the United States of America who wholeheartedly is just seemingly incapable of addressing any of the root problems and issues either themselves, right? Again, it's one big club, and your dumbass definitely is not in it.
Bipartisan immigration bill because he wanted to run his campaign on solving the illegal immigration problem, which he wouldn't be able to do if Biden already solved it. So he wanted the problem to persist, even if it meant Americans being killed by illegal immigrants. In fact,
like I said before, just a political issue for them.
Killed by illegal immigrants, the better. These sick vultures, these politicians and influencers whose care for others is very suspiciously selective, have never once uttered the names Ricky Best or Talisha Namkai Meche. The Republicans didn't name anything after them. Why? Do you ever even hear their names? You should. They were heroes. Just like Arena, they were also senselessly stabbed to death on a public train. But why do you never see these vulture influencers talk about them? Weird. Since they care so much about when someone is senselessly stabbed to death on public transit, you'd think there'd be all kinds of memes about them, like there are for Arena, but there aren't. I'm totally baffled. Maybe if we examine what happened to them, we can somehow deduce why their deaths aren't politically useful and why Trump isn't naming parks after them. You see, this guy, Jeremy Christian, was shouting racial slurs and anti-Muslim slurs at a 17-year-old Somali girl and her friend, a 16-year-old black girl. So the girls retreated to the back of the train out of fear of this belligerent anti-immigrant racist. Ricky and Namkai heroically blocked Christian's path from reaching the girls, and Christian stabbed them both to death. They lost their lives protecting those girls from this monster.
Whoa, who would have thought?
But you see, their deaths aren't politically useful, so their deaths are forgotten and become part of the statistics of right-wing violence that is dismissed as fake because they don't pay attention to murders like that, so they don't count toward the tallies in their minds when they're doing their propaganda. They only pay attention to murders they can use. Murders like Arena's, a young woman who was victimized in life and now in death by those who use her to politically shame others who bear no fault in her sin.
Again, it's the same tactics these people do all the fucking goddamn time. They don't care. Like, it's all about power for these people. It's important to remember this. Power. That's the only thing that these people care about. And also, young, attractive, blonde, white woman. Whereas the other two, not so much.
Senseless and tragic murder. And you can see how the primitive brains of these vulture influencers work in real time because they project how they themselves sympathize with others. So when they see a picture of Renee Good that looks pretty, they can't have that because they sympathize with pretty. So they hunt for pictures they see as unflattering and they say, no, this is what she really looked like.
Yeah, so this is the exact same thing that I just mentioned as well. Whoa, shocker.
As if that makes any difference whatsoever when it comes to her death. The message is that there should be more sympathy for pretty people who are killed than ugly people who are killed. And that message exists because there are monsters in this world who create those messages and use those messages to appeal to others. But
this is an inherently eugenicist attitude, by the way.
Monsters. They think that others think like they do. So they think that what they're doing is compelling rather than repulsive. And the internet provides that illusion because it creates communities of the like-minded, a community of monsters who would have been isolated and protected from influencing each other, if not for the internet. So they project their vulgar feelings onto others and try to hide.
Especially because Elon Musk bought the fucking platform and also elevates these people's voices. If you got a blue fucking check mark, which you can buy for $8 a month, those sort of like posts, the rage bait, all the fucking lies and misinformation that these people put out, those get boosted in the fucking algorithm and they get paid for it.
Highlight less flattering photos while accusing the media of trying to highlight more flattering photos because that's what monsters care about and that's what monsters think about, how fuckable the deceased looks. Zorina is pretty, so she's our death. Renee is ugly, so she's your death. That's how fucking absurd and shallow they are. That's the kind of people we're dealing with in this world. It's terrifying. My guess is that Renee...
I'm glad that he's finally starting to call them monsters because these people, they're not human, they're monsters. They're demons, all of them. They're terrible. So, good job, Dark Matter. You built up to it, but I'm glad you're doing it.
Zorina would have gotten along just fine because Renee was sympathetic to those who came here seeking a better life. She wanted to stand up for people like that. And the people who use Zorina's death are quite the opposite. How many times are we going to cycle through this game of death where we all participate in the same morbid arguments with these vultures, these justifiers of senseless death over and over again? Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, Elton Sterling, Philando Castile, Terrence Crutcher, Justine Damon, Stephon Clark, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Renee Good. The same arguments, over and over again. Just comply. Just do what you're told. Don't argue with the authorities. Argue in the courtroom. Ask the state to defend you against the state. Yeah, that's what I would do. Not because of the way it should be, but because of the way it is. I'd feel like I have no other choice. And if I misheard a command or got confused about what was going on and moved my hand in the wrong way, well, then I guess I just deserve to fucking die. But I can't accept that. As an American, I cannot accept that there's a special class of citizen who can kill me if I don't obey them on the spot. I have a wonderful young son. He is the...
Like I said before, inherently submissive people, they're cattle. They just only care about the directives from on high, from their, masters. Unironically. I know I'm not really saying much of anything. There's not really much to add, to be quite honest. What else am I supposed to say? I mean, besides the fact that it is getting late, my brain is starting to fucking be completely and utterly dead. I have been streaming for quite a while. It's... What can you add? What can you add? There's nothing to add that I have not already said before. They're demons. They're just monsters. You have to ostracize. You have to shame these people. Because, I bring up the Lindsay Ellis quote, right? Because it's always pertinent to these people. That sometimes it is, you can't really shame these people. You can't, shame the shameless. Trump doesn't care. None of these people fucking care, right? because they don't believe in society. They don't believe in words. They don't believe in the social contract. The only thing that you can do with these people is to just put them in a corner somewhere and just ignore them. Let them like yell in a corner, ban them off of all these platforms, and make it such that they are just not allowed to participate. Like, unironically, like, you have to exile these people because they don't believe in anything. They don't believe in the social contract. They only care about doing anything possible in order to gain power for themselves because they feel like they can ascend up the hierarchy if they are good little stewards to the people that they see who are on top of them. I don't know. It's just like, what can you fucking say?
Sweetest, kindest, gentlest, happiest boy you can possibly imagine. He is significantly better than I was when I was his age, and I'm proud of him for that. But he is also severely autistic, to the point in which he is mostly nonverbal, and he lacks a lot of the physical coordination that we take for granted, like keeping his balance when walking and having finger dexterity. For instance, he can't put a zipper together or do buttons or snaps on his clothes. But you can't tell just by looking at him that he's neurodivergent. And he's okay for now because he looks like this, like a little boy. But there will come a time in the future when he looks like a man, when he looks like me. And you still won't be able to tell that he's neurodivergent. If he trips over his own 2 feet like he often does, it might look like he's publicly intoxicated. If he flaps his arms too close to somebody, he might accidentally hit them. He might absent-mindedly grab his own crotch in public and think nothing of it, no differently than the way we might cross our legs in public. He doesn't know any better.
This is true, because, again, when everything looks like a nail, you're going to use a fucking hammer on it, right? Like, and that's sort of like the American attitude to fucking policing. If 911 is called, and there is, for example, someone who is autistic who's having an episode, because that happens sometimes, right? The police are going to go, and this is also a problem in Canada, for example. We have the same issue. Police will go there, they're not going to know how to deal with the situation because they're not social workers, and they'll end up fucking shooting the kid or shooting the individual who is obviously neurodivergent, who isn't following any of their commands, because that's just how these people's lizard brains broadly work.
And other people might perceive him as inappropriate. But, for whatever reason, if some federal agent or officer barked some commands at him like, show me your hands, or put your hands up, or put your hands behind your back, or don't move, or stay where you are, or don't come any closer, or get on the ground,
He's gonna say it right now.
car, or stop resisting. My son won't follow those commands because he won't understand them. And if they asked him what he's doing or who he is or for his identification, he won't answer them. And what they will see, from their very narrow perspective, is someone who has the audacity to not obey their commands.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think happens next?
Shot.
I think about that every day, every single day.
Despair.
Please rethink this idea that we need to be utterly servile and just comply with whatever orders a man in uniform barks at us. I know that pragmatically, if you don't want trouble in your life, that's typically what you need to do. I get it. But that's not really the way it should be. And we have the power to change the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's murder or a violent attack in progress or something serious like that, it's a totally different story. The response should be proportional. But if it's just someone who isn't showing you their ID or not talking to you, then it doesn't need to escalate to violence. There are people right now, far removed from the places being affected, who are so brainwashed that they're calling for Trump to declare martial law, calling for the Insurrection Act. They want violent government authority.
For literally nothing, by the way, for something that, again, you know, I wish he did bring up Nick Shirley. He never brought up Nick Shirley. But again, the reason why everything started in Minneapolis was because of some dumb fuck, like literal brick for brains, homeschooled fucking moron doing a dogshit propaganda hit piece on the Somali community, which was inherently debunked instantaneously by Nick Shirley himself when CNN asked basic fucking questions that he was not able to fucking answer because he's an idiot.
Be inflicted upon their fellow Americans. These are people who are begging for bondage. And that's the reason for all the pretexts and all the lies. Power. They're literally begging him to have more power. And that is the point. But to those of you who know better, I want you to know that a lot of the accounts you see online are fake. Most people do not support what's going on.
Yeah, this is true, by the way. Like, a lot of the people that are... I should have mentioned this myself. But a lot of the people that have these opinions, they're bots. Or don't even live in America. A lot of these guys also don't live in America. Which is... It's insane just how primed and how easy it is for these people to just be inherently fucking propagandized to. Like, they're just cattle. Like, what else are you really to say? They are cattle that need to be led by a fucking shepherd. And they are begging to be led by a fucking shepherd.
The bot accounts are to give the illusion of popularity. And very few of their influencers are actually sincere people. They're evil grifters, or ignorant, useful idiots at best, with equally misguided followers mixed in amongst the bots. Because these actions are not popular, contrary to what a few idiots online say. This is not what people voted for. The misguided votes Trump gained in the 2024 election were for affordability, and they're not even getting that. to the people who fancy themselves patriots. This is not the land of the free and the home of the brave, when we're told that we can't go here and we can't go there, and if we just stayed home, nothing bad would happen to us, and when confronted by the government, you better be polite and just cower and comply. That's neither freedom nor bravery. That's willing servitude. That's land of the slaves and home of the cowards.
Well, as Dark Matter himself said, that is the world that they want to return to. Like, unironically, they want slavery to come back. Well, unironically. And, I mean, like, I wasn't really saying much. I more or less made, I think, the rest of the entirety of my point in the middle of the Renee Nicole Good section. Everything else is just a reiteration, the past 20 minutes of this video, of stuff that I already inherently agree with, and there's not really much to add, right? The final point was the fact that these people are just fucking cattle. They don't believe in anything. They don't believe in words. Jean-Paul Sartre quote, again, withstanding and should ring eternally in your head. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. And that pretty much perfectly describes all of these, like, vultures, these charlatans, these fucking grifters that are constantly fucking brought up in terms of the MAGA movement. To a fucking goddamn T. They don't believe in society. They don't believe in the social contract. They believe in fucking nothing besides power and being submissive to it. That is it. Death of fucking subjectivity. Never fucking forget that. They have to, on purpose, be incapable of living in another person's shoes and not understanding how they think or what they may potentially believe or why they may potentially believe in, because of the broader death of critical education and critical thinking and education that has happened in the United States of America for the latter part about 40 years. So then a bunch of pedophilic, avaricious, like, broligarch weirdos can basically take the reins of power all for themselves. And there's a bunch of dumbasses out there who are so critically undereducated, borderline on being illiterate themselves, that they are willing and perfectly okay with this exact sort of dynamic, this exact hierarchy. For authoritarian structures to be more inherently successful, and authoritarian governments to be more successful, you need people to be, fundamentally speaking, less fucking educated. And we are starting to see the culmination of the destruction of education within the United States of America bear some fucking goddamn fruit. But what else is there to really say besides MAGA are a bunch of demons? The people who are a bunch of sheep to this quote-unquote political movement, they are all a bunch of demons and should just be inherently socially ostracized. If we want to have society be able to move on with our lives and be able to live in a prosperous sort of fucking world, then the only path forward is to ostracize these people and not allow them to be able to participate within society, because they don't believe in society. They don't believe in the social contract. They don't believe in anything. Don't think there's really much else to say besides that.